Far away in a quiet corner of the galaxy, there was a planet unlike any other. Its skies shimmered in shades of green and blue, and its forests glowed faintly under the light of twin suns. The surface of the planet was alive with movement, creatures that the mind of any visitor from another world could hardly imagine. Streams sparkled like liquid crystals, and mountains stretched so high that their peaks disappeared into the swirling clouds above. This was a peaceful world, full of intelligent life that had lived there for countless generations. The inhabitants, called the Zari, were tall and graceful, with skin that reflected the colors of their surroundings. They were clever, kind, and deeply connected to their planet. They had created amazing cities, not with steel and stone, but with living structures grown from the planet itself. Trees could bend and shape themselves into bridges. Plants could store energy for the city's needs. Every part of the planet seemed alive and part of one grand design. For centuries, the Zari had lived in harmony, exploring their world, studying the stars, and sending probes out to neighboring systems. They were curious and careful, always respectful of the delicate balance that sustained their life. But despite their intelligence, they were not immune to the dangers of the universe. In recent months, strange cosmic storms had begun to sweep across their region of space. At first, the storms seemed minor, flashes of energy in the skies, small disturbances that the Zari could repair quickly. But soon the storms grew stronger. Powerful currents of charged particles tore through their atmosphere. Their communication networks flickered and died. Machines failed in ways that were impossible to understand. For the first time, the Zari realized that their knowledge and technology might not be enough to save them. The storms were unlike anything they had encountered. No one knew why they were happening or where they had come from, but the effects were clear. The cities that once thrived in perfect harmony with the environment were now at risk. Vital systems for food, water, and energy were failing. Panic began to spread quietly among the Zari. They were a calm and patient people, but even the calmest could feel fear when the world around them began to crumble. As the situation worsened, the leaders of the Zari gathered in a council chamber that hovered above a forest glowing with bioluminescent light. The room was alive with whispers and soft glows as each member of the council considered the problem. They debated endlessly, examining every possibility, trying to find a solution. They tried repairing their systems, adapting to the storms and using stored energy reserves, but nothing seemed enough. The storms were relentless, and the planet was beginning to show the strain. The Zari realized that they might need help from outside their world. This was a frightening thought. Their species had always been self-reliant. They had explored their galaxy carefully, making contact with only a few nearby civilizations. And yet, now, they had no choice. They had to reach out beyond their own star system. They had to hope that someone, anyone, would answer their call. The Zari worked together to create a signal, unlike anything they had sent before. It was carefully designed to be understood by any intelligent life, no matter how different it might be from them. It carried the story of their planet, the danger they faced, and a plea for assistance. Every part of the message was precise. It explained the storms, the damage to their technology, and the urgent need for help. They hoped that another civilization, perhaps one stronger or more experienced in surviving harsh conditions, might hear it and respond. The signal was not sent lightly. Each Zari involved in the process felt a mixture of hope and fear. Hope that someone would come, fear that they might be alone. Once the message was ready, it was launched into the void, traveling through the darkness of space faster than any living thing could move. It passed stars, planets, and cosmic debris, racing into regions of space that no Zari had ever explored. For days, the Zari watched the skies, hoping for a response. They monitored every faint signal, every shift in the cosmic winds, searching for signs that another life form had received their call. The waiting was exhausting. Families huddled together in their homes, worried about what might come. Scientists and engineers worked tirelessly, trying to repair what they could, but their efforts were only partially successful. The storm damage was too great for them to fix on their own. And yet, Despite the fear and uncertainty, a sense of determination grew among the Zari. They had always been a resilient people. They were intelligent, cooperative, and patient. They knew that survival required more than strength. It required hope and unity. The signal, sent with such care and intention, was now their lifeline. As the days passed, the storms continued, and the skies remained restless. The Zari began to speak quietly of what might come. They imagined different scenarios. Perhaps no one would respond at all, and they would have to find another way to survive. Or perhaps a friendly civilization would arrive, offering assistance and saving their world. The uncertainty was unbearable, but they could not abandon hope. And then, one evening, as the twin suns set and painted the skies with a mix of orange and violet, something unusual happened. A faint shimmer appeared at the edge of the planet's atmosphere, like a distant light flickering in the void. The Zari gathered, holding their breath, staring at the signal returning in ways they could not yet understand. They did not know what or who it was, but they knew that their call for help had been noticed. In that moment, fear and hope intertwined, creating a sense of anticipation that pulsed through every heart. The planet, once quiet and isolated, had reached out into the cosmos, and now something, or someone, was coming in response. No one could predict what the future held. The Zari had lived peacefully for countless generations, but now their lives were on the edge of change. They had sent a cry for help into the infinite universe, and it was answered. Who would come? What would arrive? And how would the encounter change their world forever? These questions hung in the air as the Zari watched the skies, waiting, hoping, and preparing for the unknown. In the midst of fear, the seeds of courage had been planted, and though they could not see it yet, this was only the beginning of a story that would test everything they knew about survival, trust, and the true strength of life itself. Days passed after the first strange shimmer appeared in the Zari skies. The alien population, once calm and composed, could hardly contain their excitement and fear. Every time the light flickered or shifted, hearts skipped and whispers filled the glowing cities. No one knew exactly what was coming, only that it was something from beyond their world, something that might change everything. The Zari watched with wide, hopeful eyes, standing at the edges of their forests or atop the living towers that stretched from their cities. Families held hands and scientists adjusted their instruments, trying to understand the signals that were returning. It was unlike any communication they had ever received before. The signals seemed alive, pulsating with a rhythm that suggested intelligence but also something completely alien, something they had no way of fully predicting. Then, one evening, the first ships appeared. They were massive and unlike anything the Zari had ever seen. The vessels moved with a quiet strength, gliding through the atmosphere as if they belonged there. Their surfaces were dark and rough, covered in layers that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The Zari's instruments could detect that the ships were powered by technology far beyond their own understanding. And yet, there was something about them that felt alive. The ships moved as though guided by instinct, not just mechanics, responding to the planet's magnetic fields and weather patterns. From a distance, the Zari could see the silhouettes of figures inside the ships. They were large and heavily built, moving with confidence and a natural ease that suggested a species perfectly adapted to harsh environments. The Zari had no name for them yet, no idea who they were, but a mixture of awe and fear filled the air. As the ships landed, the ground shook slightly, sending vibrations through the living cities. Trees swayed unnaturally, and streams rippled with energy. The Zari had expected visitors, but not in this form. They had hoped for peaceful helpers, perhaps similar in appearance or temperament to themselves. Instead, they faced beings entirely different, unfamiliar in every way. These were the Deathworlders, a species that had long been whispered about in distant corners of the galaxy. Stories had described them as survivors of worlds where life was brutal, where storms, predators, and famine were constant companions. The Zari had never encountered them directly, only heard tales of their fearlessness and adaptability. And now, those very beings were standing on their planet, moving through forests and across plains with careful observation. Every step the Deathworlders took seemed measured, as if they were reading the land itself, sensing its dangers and resources simultaneously. The Zari could hardly believe their eyes. At first, there was silence. Neither side moved toward the other, unsure of what to expect. The Zari remained in their cities, observing, whispering to each other in low tones. The Deathworlders explored with curiosity and purpose, examining the plants, the structures, and the streams. They touched the glowing trees, bending and testing their resilience. They crouched near the crystal streams, dipping their hands into the water with careful, almost respectful gestures. Though the Deathworlders appeared intimidating, their actions suggested intelligence and awareness rather than aggression. The Zari began to feel a strange sense of relief. Perhaps these beings had come to help. Perhaps they were not the threat they had feared. Still, caution remained. Every Zari understood that appearances could be deceiving, and the unknown often carried hidden dangers. Communication between the species was challenging. The Zari tried using their standard signals, sending pulses of light and vibrations to represent words and concepts. The Deathworlders did not respond immediately in ways the Zari could interpret, yet they seemed to understand gestures, following instructions and performing tasks that indicated comprehension. Slowly, small interactions began. A Zari engineer would show a Deathworlder how to repair a damaged energy conduit. The Deathworlder, in turn, would use strength and precision to complete the task quickly and efficiently. Watching these exchanges, the Zari felt a mixture of admiration and surprise. They realized that despite the Deathworlders' intimidating appearance, they were not careless or reckless. Every action had purpose. Every movement was calculated to maximize survival and efficiency. The Zari began to hope that these strangers could truly help save their planet. As the days continued, the Deathworlders proved their resilience. They navigated the remaining storms with ease, their bodies and technology unaffected by conditions that would cripple the Zari. Where the aliens struggled to repair failing systems, the Deathworlders adapted quickly, improvising solutions that the Zari had never considered. They moved like shadows across the planet, quietly stabilizing energy fields, repairing broken conduits, and reinforcing the fragile structures that had been damaged by the cosmic storms. The Zari observed everything carefully, learning from the newcomers. Their initial fear began to fade, replaced by curiosity and a growing respect. They realized that survival was not only about technology or intelligence, but also about courage, adaptability, and determination. The Deathworlders embodied all of these qualities in ways the Zari had never witnessed. Even as progress was made, uncertainty remained. The Zari did not fully understand the intentions of the Deathworlders. Were they truly allies? Or was there some hidden agenda? Could they be trusted completely, or would the planet pay a price for the help it received? These questions weighed heavily on the leaders and citizens alike. Yet, despite these doubts, the work continued. The two species slowly began to establish routines, learning to cooperate in ways neither could have imagined before. The Deathworlders taught the Zari new techniques for repairing and strengthening systems. The Zari shared knowledge about the planet's ecosystem, guiding the newcomers on how to avoid harming delicate life forms. In this exchange, a fragile trust began to form, based not on friendship but on shared necessity and respect. At night, when the twin suns set and the sky shimmered with the light of distant stars, the Zari would gather to watch the Deathworlders at work. The newcomers moved with confidence, their large forms silhouetted against glowing forests and sparkling rivers. Families whispered stories to each other, imagining what life must be like on the harsh worlds the Deathworlders had survived. Children, usually timid and shy, watched in awe as the strangers demonstrated strength and skill far beyond their own. The Zari began to feel that perhaps the arrival of these beings was not a disaster, but an opportunity. Their planet had been at the brink of despair, and now, in the midst of uncertainty and fear, hope had returned. The unknown had arrived, and with it, a chance to survive against the impossible. Even as the skies continued to flicker with remnants of the storms, the Zari began to imagine a future in which their world might thrive once more. They understood that much work remained, that the challenges were far from over. Yet with the Deathworlders by their side, the impossible suddenly seemed achievable. They were no longer alone. The universe had answered their cry for help in a form they could never have predicted. And as the twin suns disappeared below the horizon, painting the skies with shades of violet and orange, the Zari felt the first true sense of relief in many weeks. Their planet had been noticed, their call had been answered, and though the journey ahead was uncertain, they knew that together they could face whatever challenges the cosmos had in store. The following morning, the alien medics returned to the plateau more determined than ever. The previous day had shown them that the Deathworlders' biology was extraordinary, but today they wanted to understand it in detail. The team gathered their instruments carefully, double-checking every scanner, probe, and sample container. They knew that one wrong step could ruin their experiments, or worse, disturb the creature. The lead medic reminded the team of the plan. "We will begin with controlled observation," they said. "We will take nothing for granted. Remember, our priority is safety, both for the team and the creature." The medics nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and tension. They had seen impossible healing and rapid blood clotting before, but nothing had prepared them for what lay ahead. As they approached the Deathworlder, the creature rose slowly, its movements precise and graceful. Despite its injuries, it showed no weakness. Its body was perfectly adapted to the harsh terrain, and its eyes followed every movement of the medics with quiet intelligence. The team paused for a moment, silently, acknowledging the strength and resilience of the creature before them. The lead medic decided to start with non-invasive scanning. A hovering scanner emitted soft pulses of light that mapped the creature's internal structure. The medics watched as the monitors displayed extraordinary results. The tissue, muscles, and circulatory system all appeared denser and more complex than anything in their databases. Every measurement revealed a new layer of complexity. The team marveled at the creature's biology while carefully recording each detail. Next, they attempted to take another blood sample. The previous day had shown them that the blood clotted instantly, but they needed more data to understand the phenomenon. One medic gently prepared the syringe, while another activated a specialized containment device designed to slow biological reactions. The lead medic guided the procedure, ensuring the process was precise and safe. As the needle touched the skin, the team braced themselves. The first drop of blood appeared and immediately began to thicken. Alarms went off on the instruments and the medics held their breath. The blood coagulated almost instantly, forming a dense, jelly-like substance that filled the syringe before it could even be drawn. The medics stared in disbelief. Every theory they had prepared seemed insufficient. This was not a simple biological reaction. It was something far more complex. The lead medic stepped back, taking a moment to observe. "It's natural," they said softly. "This is how the Deathworlders survive. Their blood protects them in ways we cannot fully understand yet." The team nodded, realizing that they were witnessing a survival mechanism perfected over millennia. They were studying evolution at its finest, and they had to approach it with care. Determined to learn more, the medics decided to conduct controlled experiments. They divided into small teams. One group monitored temperature changes, gently adjusting the environment around the blood samples. Another team introduced non-invasive chemical agents designed to slow clotting in other species. Yet another team observed the behavior of the Deathworlder itself, noting its reactions to each step. Every experiment was careful, deliberate, and meticulously recorded. Hours passed, and the medics discovered that no intervention could prevent the blood from clotting instantly. Cooling, heating, chemical treatments, nothing worked. The phenomenon was consistent, reliable, and extraordinary. The lead medic began to consider the implications. If this trait could be understood and replicated, it might revolutionize medicine across the galaxy. Rapid clotting could save countless lives, prevent fatal injuries, and enhance healing for other species. While the team worked, the Deathworlder remained calm but vigilant. It watched every movement, shifting slightly as if signaling awareness. The medics realized that the creature's intelligence was as remarkable as its biology. It understood that these visitors were observing it, and it responded in subtle ways to maintain its safety. The team adjusted their approach, ensuring that they remained respectful and non-threatening. By midday, a breakthrough occurred. One medic noticed a pattern in the way the blood clotted. Each sample, when exposed to external stimuli, released tiny pulses of energy that seemed to interact with the instruments and environment. These pulses were subtle, but measurable. The team realized that the clotting was not purely chemical. It involved an energy component, a biological feature they had never encountered before. The medics' fascination grew, but so did their caution. They were uncovering knowledge that could change everything, yet it also carried risks. The lead medic gathered the team to discuss the findings. "This is beyond any biology we know," they said. "We are observing a combination of chemistry, energy, and instinct, all working together to protect the Deathworlder. Every step we take must respect that balance." The medics agreed, understanding that this was not just a scientific mission, it was a lesson in humility. As the day progressed, the medics tried indirect methods to study the blood. They used advanced imaging technology, observing how the cells interacted and how the clotting mechanism worked at the microscopic level. The results were astonishing. The clotting process was nearly instantaneous, yet perfectly controlled. There were no signs of error or imbalance. It was as if the blood knew exactly how to respond to injury, preventing loss of life in a way no other species could achieve. The team also noticed the Deathworlder's remarkable healing abilities. Minor injuries that might have caused pain or weakness in other species were barely noticeable here. The creature moved with confidence and precision, each movement a testament to its evolutionary perfection. The medics realized that the blood clotting was only one part of a larger survival system, and that every aspect of the Deathworlder's biology worked together in harmony. As evening approached, the medics documented their findings, discussing theories and potential explanations. They speculated about how the species had evolved in such a dangerous environment, and how these adaptations ensured survival. They considered the possibility that other creatures on the planet might share similar traits, and that the ecosystem, as a whole, operated on principles far different from anything they had studied before. The lead medic summarized the day's work. "We have learned much, but we are only scratching the surface. Tomorrow we must continue carefully, respecting the creature while seeking understanding. This is not just a study. It is a partnership with life itself." The team agreed, understanding that their mission was both scientific and ethical. They had to balance curiosity with compassion, discovery with responsibility. That night, the medics returned to their camp, exhausted but exhilarated. The Deathworlder remained in the distance, moving through the jagged landscape with ease. The team reflected on the day's events, realizing how little they truly understood about life in the galaxy. The rapid clotting, the energy pulses, the creature's resilience, all of it challenged their knowledge and assumptions. As they prepared to rest, the lead medic looked at the stars above the Deathworld, thinking about the lessons of the day. They had traveled across the galaxy seeking knowledge, and what they found was more than science. It was a reminder of the power, complexity, and beauty of life. The Deathworlders had survived for countless generations because they were perfectly adapted to their world, and now the medics had a glimpse of that perfection. Sleep came slowly that night, for the medics were both tired and alive with questions. They knew that the following days would bring more challenges, more discoveries, and perhaps more surprises. The blood clotting phenomenon was only the beginning, a doorway into understanding a species that had evolved to thrive in the most unforgiving conditions imaginable. The alien medics were ready to continue, driven by curiosity, respect, and the unshakable desire to learn from life itself. The following day, the alien medics approached the plateau with heightened caution. The previous experiments had revealed astonishing traits of the Deathworlder's biology, Yet the team felt the first real pangs of unease. The creature's reactions had grown more deliberate. It moved with even greater awareness, as though it could sense every motion, every intention of the medics. The team knew they were no longer simply observers. They were participants in the ecosystem of the death world, and the consequences of any misstep could be serious. As the medics set up their instruments, the lead medic reminded them to maintain distance and minimize stress to the creature. "We are here to learn, not to provoke," they said quietly. "Every observation must respect the boundaries of the Deathworlder. One mistake could undo the trust we've built." The Deathworlder emerged from the shadows of jagged rocks, moving with calculated precision. Its injured leg from the previous days now seemed fully healed. Muscles rippled under its skin with effortless strength. The medics were both impressed and slightly fearful. This creature had survived in an environment that would have killed almost any other species, and it had clearly learned to adapt to the presence of outsiders. The team began their controlled observation, recording the creature's movements, breathing patterns, and behavioral cues. They noticed subtle changes. The Deathworlder's gaze was sharper, more focused. It occasionally paused and tilted its head as if analyzing the medics in return. The lead medic observed that the creature seemed to understand the instruments. They were not just harmless devices, but objects of curiosity and potential threat. Despite their careful approach, the medics felt tension building. One member accidentally knocked a small tool against a rock. The sound echoed loudly, and the Deathworlder reacted instantly. Its body tensed, eyes narrowed, and a low growl emanated from deep within its chest. The medics froze. They had heard stories of Deathworlders defending themselves instinctively, but witnessing it firsthand was different. The creature did not attack, but the warning was unmistakable. The lead medic spoke in soft tones to the team. "This is why we proceed slowly. It is testing us, gauging our intentions. We must earn its trust, or we risk failure." The team nodded, their nerves taut but focused. Every movement now was deliberate, every observation precise. As the day progressed, the medics attempted indirect methods to further understand the clotting mechanism. They used remote scanning tools, non-invasive imaging, and environmental controls to see how the blood reacted outside the body. Despite all precautions, the phenomenon persisted: instant clotting, energy pulses, and rapid cellular organization. The medics realized that this was more than survival. It was an artful system of protection and regeneration built into every cell of the Deathworlder's body. Then, the unexpected happened. While observing from a distance, one medic noticed the creature's behavior shift suddenly. The Deathworlder's ears twitched, its head lowered, and it moved toward a small ridge of rocks. There, it found a small, injured animal struggling in the dirt. Without hesitation, the creature approached carefully, inspecting the smaller being. The medics watched in amazement as the Deathworlder seemed to assess the situation. Its behavior was protective rather than aggressive, almost compassionate. The lead medic leaned closer, whispering to the team, "We often forget. Survival does not mean cruelty. Even in the harshest environments, life finds ways to care for itself." The team felt a surge of respect for the creature. Here was a being perfectly adapted to a dangerous world, yet capable of thought and consideration beyond mere instinct. However, this display of intelligence also made the medics aware of their own limitations. They realized that their attempts to study and experiment, no matter how careful, could inadvertently threaten the creature or provoke defensive behavior. They had learned to observe, but the Deathworlder now demanded a higher level of awareness, AI, respect for autonomy as well as biology. Later in the day, the medics attempted a new experiment: controlled exposure of a blood sample to environmental variables. They used temperature changes, electromagnetic fields, and simulated injury responses to observe reactions. Every test produced the same result: the blood clotted instantly, pulses of energy radiating in patterns that the medics could measure, but not fully explain. It was as if the body itself was alive in every drop of blood, a self-contained protective system far beyond conventional understanding. While monitoring the tests, the medics noticed another unexpected phenomenon. The Deathworlder began to mirror some of their movements from a distance. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but the team could see it, tilting its head, adjusting its stance, even shifting its weight in response to the instruments. The creature seemed to understand the rhythm and intent of the medics, learning from their actions and anticipating potential threats. This realization both fascinated and intimidated the team. They were dealing with intelligence and adaptability in ways they had never experienced before. By evening, the medics concluded their observations for the day. They had gathered an enormous amount of data, but they also realized that raw information alone would not be enough. Understanding the Deathworlders required patience, empathy, and continuous respect for the balance of life on the planet. The team set up a secure perimeter, allowing the creature to move freely while keeping themselves safe. The lead medic emphasized that tomorrow would require the same careful approach. As night fell, the team gathered at their camp, exhausted but exhilarated. They reviewed the day's events, discussing not only the scientific findings, but also the behavioral observations. They understood that they were witnessing an ecosystem unlike any other, where survival depended not only on strength but on intelligence, strategy, and subtle social interactions. The Deathworlders' rapid clotting, energy pulses, and adaptive responses were all part of a larger system finely tuned over countless generations. The lead medic reflected on the lessons of the day. "We came here thinking we could study and understand," they said. "But the Deathworlder is teaching us humility. It reminds us that even the most advanced civilizations can learn from the natural world. Knowledge is not just about instruments and measurements, it is about respect, observation, and patience." Sleep came lightly that night. The alien medics were aware that their time on the Deathworld was only part of a longer journey. They had seen incredible biology, intelligence, and adaptability, but they also understood that their work carried responsibilities. The Deathworlders were not specimens. They were life forms with instincts, awareness, and a right to survive on their own terms. The medics fell asleep with thoughts of tomorrow, eager to continue learning while honoring the lessons of respect and humility that the planet demanded. The next morning, the alien medics approached the plateau with a renewed sense of purpose. The previous days had tested their skills, patience, and understanding of life itself. They had witnessed the remarkable biology of the Deathworlders, observed the rapid blood clotting, and understood that survival on this planet was a combination of strength, intelligence, and instinct. Today they hoped to complete their study while maintaining the respect and caution they had learned was essential. As the team set up their instruments, the Deathworlder emerged from the shadows, moving with effortless grace. Its healed body demonstrated both power and agility. The creature's eyes followed the medics closely, as though recognizing them as both observers and allies. The lead medic reminded the team that their mission was not to dominate or control, but to learn and respect. Every action needed to honor that principle. The medics began their routine of observation and controlled testing. They used advanced scanners to examine the blood and tissues, carefully documenting each reaction. The instant clotting phenomenon continued to amaze them. Every drop of blood, every cellular pulse, every energy emission confirmed that the Deathworlders were unlike any known species. The team recorded the data meticulously, knowing that these findings could revolutionize understanding of life across the galaxy. As they worked, the Deathworlder moved around them, occasionally observing the instruments, sometimes pausing to inspect a device with quiet curiosity. The medics marveled at the creature's intelligence. It was not merely a passive participant, it seemed to understand their actions and respond in ways that minimized risk while demonstrating awareness. The team realized that they were witnessing both biological perfection and behavioral sophistication. Midday brought an extraordinary event. Deathworlder encountered a small injured creature nearby, a member of its own species or a similar native animal. Without hesitation, it approached the smaller being carefully, inspecting the injury. The medics watched in awe as the Deathworlder applied subtle pressure, using its body in a protective manner. It was an instinctive act of care and precision, demonstrating that life on the Deathworld involved not just survival, but awareness and empathy. The medics took careful notes, understanding that this behavior was as important as the biological data. They realized that the Deathworlder's rapid clotting and healing mechanisms were only part of a larger system that included intelligence, strategy, and social awareness. Survival on the Deathworld required not just physical resilience but adaptability, problem-solving, and subtle decision-making. Later, the team conducted their final series of experiments on blood samples. They exposed them to different environmental variables and energy fields, observing the instantaneous clotting and energy pulses. The results were consistent. The mechanism was self-contained, flawless, and nearly impossible to interfere with. The medics realized that the Deathworlder's biology had evolved to a level of perfection that they could admire but not replicate. By evening, the medics concluded their study. They had learned everything they could through observation and non-invasive methods. They carefully packed their instruments, ensuring that no trace of their experiments would disrupt the natural balance of the plateau. The Deathworlder watched silently, moving with the confidence of a creature perfectly adapted to its world. The lead medic gathered the team. "We have learned more than we could have imagined," they said. "This planet, this creature teaches us that life can survive in ways we cannot predict. Our role was to observe, understand, and respect. We have done that, and in return the Deathworlder has allowed us a glimpse into the extraordinary." As night fell, the medics prepared to leave the plateau. They reflected on the lessons of the Deathworld: resilience, intelligence, adaptability, and the power of life to survive against all odds. The rapid clotting of blood, the energy pulses, the behavior of the creature, and its ability to care for others, all these aspects combined into a single truth. Life, in its purest form, is both complex and awe-inspiring. The team departed with gratitude and humility. They carried detailed records, sketches, and observations that would enrich their civilization's understanding of biology. Yet the most important lesson was not scientific, it was philosophical. They had learned to respect life in its most extreme form, to recognize the limits of knowledge, and to understand that true understanding requires patience, empathy, and reverence for the natural world. As the shuttle lifted off, the alien medics looked down at the plateau, at the creature that had taught them so much. It moved effortlessly across the rugged terrain, free, strong, and intelligent. They realized that some mysteries of life are meant not to be controlled or changed, but to be appreciated and respected. The Deathworlder would continue to survive, thrive, and teach the planet's lessons to anyone willing to watch and learn. The journey back through space was quiet. The medics reviewed their data, shared observations, and reflected on the extraordinary experience. They knew that the knowledge they had gained would benefit countless beings, but the greater reward was understanding the delicate balance of life itself. The Deathworlder, with its rapid clotting and perfect adaptability, had shown them the meaning of resilience, intelligence, and harmony with nature. The alien medics returned home, carrying both data and wisdom. They had set out to study biology, but they had discovered a lesson in humility and respect. The Deathworlder's blood and behavior remained a marvel, a reminder that life can survive, adapt, and thrive in ways that challenge even the most advanced civilizations. And in that realization, the medics found inspiration, awe, and a profound respect for the mysteries of the universe.